This is your moment. This is your time. Embrace every milestone. No looking behind. What's your vantage point?
Hello, welcome to Vantage Point. We are so excited because I've got my girls with me. We've got
Natalie, hey.
Lori.
And Serge Murray.
And I'm Alexa Hawkins, and we're here to talk about something really important today. We have talked in the past and had a lot of fun about sex. The topic of sex, how good it is, what you can learn from it, what people do, how often we have it, etc. And that show was really exciting because we learned something and we just explored the positive side of sex. But as we all know, there's an underbelly when it comes to sex. And if you've been listening to the news and if you've been half awake, then you see in the headlines all over there are different names that are popping up. Men, especially, who are perpetrating acts against young girls, especially. Yeah. And so we just want to take a minute today and talk about some of that. Talk about how it affects our society, how it affects us, what we're seeing, what we're hearing, and what's our vantage point. So as always, make sure you join the conversation because we want to hear what you think about it too. But this day and age that we're in right now, we have everything from Bob Kraft, the owner of the Patriots football team, and he was caught going into a massage parlor. Nothing wrong with massage parlor, but they find out they're doing an investigation, and it's a sting operation for sex trafficking. We look at Michael Jackson and how he was exposed. There's always different names that are popping up. R. Kelly and that whole series. So what are some of the things that you're thinking and feeling as you just listen to the news and hear about these stories these days?
You know, part of it, I feel obligated in a sense to pay attention to it. Some people, I know there was conversation, I'm not even watching the R. Kelly, and I felt that way at first. I was like, I'm not even watching that R. Kelly show. Like, that is just a waste of my time, and, you know. But I watched the first show, and I felt like I had a responsibility as a woman to watch the entire series. Because those are people's stories. They're not just events that took place. You know, I wanted to put myself in those girls' positions and put myself in the place of the mother and the sister and the, you know, the aunt of those girls. Right. And I would want somebody to know my daughter's story and be aware of it. So I felt obligated to pay attention. Some of the other things I'm not so well versed on in regards to, like Michael Jackson and, you know, what went on with him. But R. Kelly, that story, and stories like it.
So tell us a little bit more about it, just in case someone doesn't understand what's going on.
So R. Kelly, for years, you know, we all know that he was married to Aaliyah, allegedly, when she was 14. I believe it was 14. Yes. And 14 or 15. And as I hear her song now, that age ain't nothing but a number, I'm like, doggone it, you meant that, Aaliyah, huh?
That man told on himself all through his music.
But the boldness of it.
Yes, and that the point is, it's always in our face. It's just right there below the surface. But go ahead.
Yes, no, absolutely. Yeah. And so he had a natural, I guess, attraction to young women, and so he married Aaliyah. You know, Aaliyah passed away, and then he went on this pursuit of other young women. And what was really, really crazy to me, Sparkle, the musician Sparkle, it was her niece that was the one that they allegedly, that he urinated all over. But that wasn't the kicker for me. It was the fact that she said it wasn't me.
What do you mean?
So he went to court because the girl, there's a videotape, there's an actual videotape. And on the documentary, there's a young lady who confesses that she's the one that leaked the tape. Right. Because she wanted to have some evidence of her own. Well, she was actually on the tape with this young woman. So she can identify this young woman. And so she says it's her, hands down. But when they went to court, if all she had to do was say, yes, that is me on the tape, and he would have gone to jail. And she denied it. Right. She denied it. The parents denied it. They said that it wasn't her. And then that family actually split because Sparkle's like, no, that's my niece. I know my niece. And the family's like, so when you're the judge, you're like, well, who am I going to believe? The actual person and their parents? Or the aunt who might be mad about some other things. So, I mean, there's just a series of dark things that took place with R. Kelly.
Yeah. I saw the series, and while I wanted to watch because it's been such a major buzz throughout social media, and I was like, what are they talking about? And my husband and I agreed, we're going to watch this as a family. I have two girls. and also a son. And we say it's going to be a little graphic, but we want you to be aware. And this is why we're strict. This is why we have boundaries. This is why there are times I'm like, no, we're not doing this. This is what we're doing. It's not because we're over the top or overly protective. Yeah, we are protective, but we also have to use wisdom. When we watched that entire documentary, my youngest was blown away. She was like, but they have evidence. They have evidence. And I understood her line of questioning, but it's also instantly I thought of fear. That's probably why the young lady and her family probably got paid off. No one wants to admit that, but obviously there was some exchange there. But this thing is happening right in our backyard, and that is why I had them watch. As if we all watched, and we actually had a family discussion.
Right.
Because I wanted them to understand that this stuff is real and is happening right here in the U.S., including overseas.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of things too. There's fear, there's shame. I mean, there's so many layers to this thing.
Absolutely.
But there was evidence. It was apparent. This was the young lady, but what wasn't there was a voice. And so, I think in all of these cases where there's abuse of power, you lose your voice, and the perpetrator does things to get you to that space where
so
you
funny
can't
that
speak
you said
up.
that. His wife, you know, now that his wife is doing all this talking, all the women that were there were like, wait, we've never heard her voice before.
Yeah, right. But she was there.
You had to have permission.
But
to
much
speak.
like in a sex, and I'd love to talk about sex trafficking, but with R. Kelly, he would keep them separate.
Yes.
And I think Sparkle was saying, I don't know if, it was Sparkle, when she was telling the story of how his wife was concealed, she was away, and he was very careful to make sure that they wouldn't fraternize with each other, because I always say when women get together, great things happen.
That's right.
So he was very clever in that way to keep keep women apart.
Yeah.
Which speaks to the mind game. That's
Right.
right.
Oh
It
my
speaks to the
gosh.
mind game, because we are talking about young women. And when you talk about young women, you're also talking about people who are impressionable, people who may not have the savvy to know when someone's using you, when someone's abusing you or about to. And so there's that idea that this person's showing an interest. This is a powerful person. This is a person who can advance my career. This is someone who I can get something from. Or even just, I feel better being in association. I feel better saying that, I'm hanging out with R. Kelly, or I'm hanging out with someone. And you get seduced as a young person into thinking that this is good and he must be good.
And they might
And
love
so
him for
then,
real.
as he slowly
talented.
starts doing things that you have a question mark in your mind, you just run over it, because he's good, he's powerful, he's great. And you might have another question mark as it goes on. But he's good, he's powerful, he's great. And you're getting some benefits as well.
Like Michael Jackson. So he's the king of pop. And I think what the men that came out recently, they were like, he's the king of pop. We loved him. We legitimately loved him. They were kids. They didn't know what was happening. So it is an abuse of power.
Well, and if you're 14, 15, 13, how much experience do you have with sex anyway to know if that's what you know to be sex, because this is what's been taught to you, then how do you know any different? And I think some of them genuinely loved him. Like that, this is your first big, everybody plays a fool sometime. Like we all have a fool story.
I get it. But Lori, what about the parents though? If you're 13, 14, 15 years of age, now once you're 18, I get it, because at this point your child could say, you know what, I'm out. This is what I want to do.
Right.
But some of these young ladies were underage, and their parents were allowing them to go off with this man. I can't say young man, this man. And now you're devastated that your child is missing. You haven't heard from your daughter from a year, 2 years. And I'm looking at the parents of, where were you? Why did you allow this to be? And one of the young ladies who's now, actually she publicly said, this is where I want to be. I love R. Kelly. I'm in love with him. He takes care of us. But also said that the parents were getting paid by him. But once the paycheck stopped coming, all of a sudden now he has kidnapped my child.
So we want to be careful not to judge, right? Because we really don't know who was if there was any payment or anything. We really we don't know.
We don't.
But allegedly, we don't know. But I think in all the cases, whether it's R. Kelly, Michael Jackson, or sex trafficking, this is either a profiteer or someone who's abusing power, who's capitalizing on a vulnerability. And people who fall victim to this, there's a vulnerability. So like in sex, I saw a lot of parallels with gang recruitment. Gangs
Yes.
Yeah.
go to, there are gang recruiters. I
Yeah.
used to study this when I was in New York. I was on the gang task force, and we learned how they would recruit. And oftentimes they would go to Little League fields, basketball games. They're looking to see who has the dirty sneakers, who doesn't have family support. Not because the family doesn't support them, but because maybe mom and dad are busy or split or working two jobs or whatever. And they're presenting, I'll get you some sneakers, or I'll love you, or I'll buy you a birthday cake. Or now I'm hearing this new term called Romeo pimps. Romeo pimps are that romance. I love you, I care about your mind, right? But there's a vulnerability. But the other thing I thought too, this was an assumption I made, was that, you know, like maybe homeless girls, and let's call them what they are, girls, they're kids. It's not always women.
Right.
I think the average age when you enter into sex trafficking is between 12 and 14 years old.
That's correct.
12 and 14 years old. But the vulnerability could be they were homeless, they might be hungry, need a safe place to stay,
Foster
a
care.
runaway,
Foster is a big
foster care. But let's not discriminate. There's no demographic that's exempt from getting caught up in this mess.
Right.
And I always think it comes back to voice. How do we equip young women and women to develop their voice? I love the work you're doing in the space of building an army of leaders, because you're teaching people, young people, how to speak up and open their mouths and say, something ain't right.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about the parents, the other side, because I think the parents trusted them. I think they trusted him. Honestly, I remember when the case was taking place, and it was, oh, they trying to get the black man. They trying to bring the black man down. Oh, they always trying to come for the dude. And so maybe it was, and then when it was, he was found not guilty. Now it was, see, told you they was trying to get him. And so now that further validated the fact that he would not do this.
Right.
Because why would he do it when he got away with it once? So if I'm thinking in my mindset, and I'm just trying to look at the parents' vantage point, in my mindset, I'm thinking maybe, well, that's the court. If the court couldn't see it, then maybe it's not true. And also, I'm trying to push my child's dream, because a lot of them wanted to be singers or, you know, in the music industry.
Sure.
And so they're thinking they're doing a good thing by saying, you know, people said, I don't know how people can send kids to boarding school. You know, that's a lot of trust. So this is kind of like a musical boarding school.
I have a different vantage point on this one. I don't agree. Because as a parent, my job is to protect. And if I don't know, it's one thing, okay, I get it. You're R. Kelly, you're Michael Jackson, you're a pop, you're an icon. I get that. But I don't know you. And this is my valuable asset. This is an investment. This is my baby. This is my future.
Asset.
Well, in an asset, wrong term. But what I'm saying is this is my life. I'm not going to give you what God has given me. Not so freely. I get it, because I have a daughter. She's an awesome athlete. I think she's an awesome.
She is an awesome athlete.
She's the greatest of all time.
I can't tell you. Thank you. I received that, friend. I can't tell you. We've had people say, "Hey, can she come over, spend the night?" I think they're good people. No, she cannot.
Yeah.
Unless I have a relationship with you and I know you, and I say, you know what, they're good. I've been in your home. And most of these people, I don't even know where they live. So why would I say, yes, go and spend a year or travel for the summer, off season, because I want you to pursue your dream? No, absolutely not.
Well, see, this is the exact thing that happened with the Michael Jackson case.
Yep.
Because if you remember, there was an HBO special, and they showcased two people who were actually seduced into the music industry.
Okay.
Because the parents, somehow, I'm not even quite sure how they met the boys, but the boys loved Michael, of course. He's this huge pop star. And Michael took an affinity to them and invited them over one was in Australia, I believe, invited them over to live and to be with him at the ranch.
Yeah.
So as the documentary unfolds, it starts talking about the parents, and both mothers take an extremely opposite position. One mother, right away, as soon as she realizes that what's going on, she's like, it's my fault. I should have done what you said. I should have been aware. My job in life is to protect my child, and I didn't do it. The other mother had this opposite reaction, and first of all, she kind of fell apart because obviously this is such a devastating thing. But she was just like, she didn't know what was going on. She didn't know what was happening. She thought she was doing good by her son to send him over there. I mean, in his best interest, in the boy's best interest. I'm sending you to what I believe is a safe person who's going to help your career and help you in the things that you love. But she just broke down because she never took ownership of it, as in that was my role as a parent. She was just devastated because of what happened. And so the dichotomy of those two women, one was just very strong. This was my fault. And then to see the play out between the parents and their two sons, because that was hard to see. You know, one, I think both of them went through counseling, but one still to this day, the last time I checked in with the story, had a problem with his mother. It was like there was a little, you know, residual, I blame you. I blame you for not protecting me. And the other woman was like, how can I know?
And I think one of those boys stayed with him in his room for 30 days straight. Now,
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. It's, you know, things surface and you don't see it coming. But when you find out, you're like, yes, that was a sign. So I get it, you know, your job is to protect, but I also get the distraction of the world. So like going back to vulnerable populations, I just recently went through a poverty simulation experience. And I was like, I don't need to go through no poverty simulation. I grew up as a kid in poverty. But what I never was a single mother in poverty. I was never a disabled person. I was never an unemployed person. But what the experience exposed me to was that sometimes you are just put in really, really tough situations. And what I was able to experience was the time scarcity of things. And I think I had to make a choice of committing a crime or feeding my family. But what it also does, it distracts you from things that your kids need. In one of the simulations, I was a 15-year-old girl where there was 3 adults in my family. This is a simulation, so this isn't real, 3 adults. And they were all busy trying to survive, where I was just doing my thing, right? Wow. So back to these cases, this is why I almost feel like we have to be careful not to judge parents. You know, yes, it is your job to protect, but I understand that there's other things that's competing for your time and attention.
Well, the other thing too is, along the lines of the parents, the kids kept saying, no, it didn't happen to me. Right. They kept asking. And they kept saying, no, it didn't happen to me. No, it didn't happen to me. You know, in private, did it happen to you? No, it didn't happen. Did he touch you? No, he didn't touch me. So at a certain point, what do you do beyond that? Yeah. At a certain point, when your son seems okay, and he keeps denying it, what do you do beyond that? I know that when it all came out, you know, obviously they were upset, but that's a...
Yeah, that comes with relationship with your child. You know when your child's lying.
I was just thinking that.
You know when your child's, and we're talking about, you know, sending them and trust. Most molestation that takes place happens with somebody in your family.
That's right.
So yes, we can judge. You're sending them to Michael Jackson's house
across
but
the
you
world.
Send them. I mean, I know people who, you know, you went to go stay with your uncle for the summer, and they touched you. But the parent is trusting. I think it all comes down to, you don't want to keep them in a prison, and you feel like I don't want to make them miss out on experiences because of my fear. And like, is it me? And am I being too overprotective? And you know, my husband and I are having a conversation about if my son had the opportunity to go overseas in his sophomore year summer, I'm down with it. My husband's like, no, he can't go. And I'm like, I don't want him to miss opportunities because, you know, I have a friend, she sent her son to Australia and, you know, he went to all these other places in high school. I think that's amazing.
I sent my daughter to Japan.
See, I think it all comes down to discernment.
I was just thinking,
you have to discern.
So where's God in all of this? But okay.
No, okay, so where's God? Also, what about when there's investigations and there's proof and nothing happens? So with the R. Kelly case, you have video footage, you have, you know, communications, whether it's a text or whatever, you know, how many women did it take to speak up? It took his ex-wife to start it, and it took so long for things to happen. With Michael Jackson, one of his victims, you know, Michael Jackson suffered from a skin disease, and the victim he sketched out a marking from underneath of his genitalia. There was an investigation. They unveiled this piece of art from an envelope, and it was identical. This is evidence. Wow. So whether a child is speaking up saying, yes, they did it or not, or if a parent can discern it or not, law enforcement, investigators, if you have evidence, why don't we act?
And this is not something that's new. This has been going on since the beginning of time.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, you know, how many young girls were up in Master's headquarters, you know, and
Yeah.
they've got all these young children, and you talk about a man of power and clout.
Right.
This is not something that is new. How many pastors, you know, priests in the
Yeah.
world are courting these young people? So it's not new. So yeah, we can look at Michael Jackson and we can look at R. Kelly, but it's more prominent. How many teachers, you know, are dating what about the man who kidnapped his student and ran away with her?
Yeah.
You know, there was
Right.
just a series out on
A
her.
Catholic church.
So I mean, you know, it's happening. My problem is the voice, like you said. Where's the voice?
Yep.
Where's the education in the schools teaching these kids this is what's acceptable? This is how you can let people know. Being proactive. You know, I'm always coming at the church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We need to stand up in the pulpit. Seedlings, there are seedlings. One of our children's ministry, the other day they talked about appropriate touching.
That's right.
That's what I'm
Important.
talking about. Yes,
Yes.
reporting it and what's
Is that
good.
still taught in schools though today? Because I remember in school we were taught what was acceptable and what was not acceptable.
Yes, so they'll tell you about what should be touched, but I don't think there's enough emphasis on if it happens, this is what you should do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the outlet and,
Yeah.
and making it safe like that.
And to that point, therein lies the rub, because when people do speak up, do we listen?
Right.
That's it.
And
You're right.
do we listen? Because you've got this person in such a vulnerable state. I mean, it's almost unimaginable how much willpower and strength it would take someone to speak up and say, this happened to me. That requires a lot of presence. I know adults who can't do that, who are still going through that. And then this is the tricky part. Like, for instance, back to Michael Jackson. When he went on trial, when Michael Jackson went on trial, he had all these people testify that he was great, he was good, he never did anything. A testimony that you never did anything doesn't mean anything. It's the
Right.
testimony of what you did do. So there was one person who said he did this. That's why there was a trial in the first place.
Right.
He did this. The two boys who came out later, now I'm not against them because I know it's your own process and it takes time. But my heart grieves because they came out later, and in essence, that first person who stood up
Yes.
was left dangling in the wind.
And in
If you
that-
understand what I
Yeah.
mean, that first person, young as he was,
Yeah.
said, this happened
Yes.
to me, and nobody stepped up next to him and said, and me too,
Yeah.
and me too.
That was very
And my
close.
heart just bleeds for that person,
Yeah.
because when you do have the strength to stand up in front of everyone, courtrooms, you're taking Michael Jackson down,
Yep.
excuse you, everybody loves him, and for him not to get the support he needs, that's the question. At that point, how do we rally around someone like that and make sure that they're supported?
Yeah, that was Ray Ropes, and he actually said in a recent interview, he says, I wish I was ready then, because we left him out there
That's
alone.
what he said, yeah.
That's exactly what he said. He says, I wish I was, but I wasn't. I didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
The other
And
thing
I
is,
understand that.
Yeah,
I understand.
and they settled. That first accusation, they settled for $25 million out of court. And then there was a second family that they settled for the same amount and a couple of other things. I mean, it's terrible. It's painful. People are deeply, deeply affected
Well, let me
by
ask you
it.
this question. I know we might have to wrap up because this has been an excellent show, but let me just ask you really quickly. The other side to all this, especially when it's someone who's in the entertainment industry, we consume their products. And I remember when they were talking about R. Kelly, they were saying, oh, this is a publicity stunt. He just did this so they won't buy more records, et cetera, et cetera. How do you feel about continuing to consume someone's entertainment product or to help them in their industry? Do you continue to buy R. Kelly? Do you continue to watch Michael Jackson? What do you
I'm
do?
still watching The Cosby Show.
I was just going to say
I'm
that.
not going to lie.
I'm not watching
gonna watch
Bill.
The
I'm watching
Cosby-
Heathcliff.
And so is R. Kelly a character?
Yeah.
Or is he the person?
No, that's Robert Kelly.
That's
Yeah.
Robert Kelly now.
So the first thing I was like, I can't step in the name of love anymore. Like I like stepping in the, that was my song. But he also had a 20-minute song. It was like a dissertation of a confession saying I didn't do it or I did it or something like that. I
I just
can't.
wouldn't put any money in his pocket.
That's
Like
my thing.
I wouldn't buy
But he's
his music.
broke.
I wouldn't go
He
to
don't
his
have a
stuff.
lot of money.
And that's what these girls. I'm like, oh no, you gonna get me?
got
And you
something?
broke? Oh, hold up, wait a minute now. It was one thing for you to have some money, but you mean to tell me you? Oh no, you got me twisted.
Yeah.
You got me.
So you're saying
what
going forward, you wouldn't...
No, and I'm also thinking, what are these girls going to do? Because if he goes to jail, what
hope he
happens to
does.
these young ladies?
Go home.
Okay, so
Go home.
Well, no,
and
it's
it's
a lot of
easier
healing
said
that
than
has to
done.
happen.
I'm about to say
A lot of
absolutely,
healing.
but there's obviously for you to be in this situation, there is something broken. Something is wrong.
Absolutely.
So he first and foremost, I believe they need to go home. Maybe not mom and dad home, but go back to a safe place.
Well, these are the current girls, but
The
there's
current
a
girls,
long
not
list of
I'm about to
women.
say, yeah, unfortunately. But the current girls that are currently, residing with him, go back to where you came from.
See, and I think they need to go to therapy.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I
Getting
mean,
the
like,
help that
not
you
even
need.
home. They need to go to therapy because brainwashing,
Right.
they have to fix their whole mind. You know what I mean? There are outlets, Look, I'm like, send them to Mercy.
Yeah.
Go on
Yeah,
ahead. Nancy,
multiply.
Nancy, we got some girls coming your way.
Or the Covenant House in New York. But here's the
Yeah.
thing, too.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
R. Kelly, one of the things, and no one, I never heard anyone speak of this, but his brother actually came out and said that his sister used to molest him and R. Kelly.
I heard that.
So then when I heard that, I said, well, there it is. There's the root cause here.
But that's a
there's always
cop-out.
a root.
Not
That's a
making that
cop-out.
an excuse, but I get it.
There's a root to everything.
That's my point.
But one of the things I always used to say to my kids is, your circumstances does not give you permission to be reckless.
I agree.
It doesn't give you permission. You have got to do the work. So he's got to get to the root, but you also have to be held accountable.
Right.
Now, one thing I do want to say, and I know we're running out of time, is that I heard this on the Breakfast Club. Charlamagne the God said, can I have some diversity in my messed up celebrities? Right? Because we got Bill Cosby, we got R. Kelly, we got Michael Jackson. He's like, can we dig up something with Elvis Presley?
Well, we don't need to because we have our president that we can talk about. But we're going to go ahead and leave right now on that note. And we want you to make sure that this was a great conversation.
This was a
We might
good
have to
conversation.
continue this
It was
conversation.
good. There's a lot more.
Definitely might
There's
need to
a lot
continue
more.
this. But we want to make sure, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your side of it. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us at VP Ladies or follow us on Facebook at the Ladies of Vantage Point. That's our Vantage Point.
What's yours?
What's your vantage point?